Everywhere I go, I see his face. And I say that partly because when I was in Vancouver earlier this weekend at a friend's place near Broadway City Hall, they had Vancouver Canucks posters on the streetlights, and guess whose face happened to be right in front of my friend's apartment? Quinn Hughes. And I get it, we've been making a bunch of videos about this guy, literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 videos in a row have all had some sort of relation to the Vancouver Canucks trading away their franchise defenseman and captain Quinn Hughes, and I promise that will probably stop sometime today. Because today, I wanted to put some of the final nails in the coffin for Quinn Hughes and his time as a Vancouver Canuck, as well as some of the comments that he made about the Minnesota Wild, and whether or not these comments were potentially shade towards other teams. Did Quinn Hughes slightly diss the New Jersey Devils? I guess we'll try to find out. Today we're referring to Quinn Hughes' very first interview with the Minnesota Wild after the Wild's big win over Boston yesterday. Now, if you saw the video that we made last night, we did already talk about this interview where Quinn said it was essentially time to leave the Vancouver Canucks. That was a comment in and of itself that sparked some pretty interesting discussion, but you also had yourselves this quote, where Quinn Hughes says he is very open to signing long-term in Minnesota. He has a lot of respect for Billy Guerin for making the trade and believing in him. Now, I want to establish as well the fact that Elliot Friedman said earlier on Saturday that there were only two teams that were not scared off by the Quinn Hughes looming contract expiration. One was the New Jersey Devils, and the other was the Minnesota Wild. All the other teams were a little bit scared, and as a result, they didn't want to trade away their best prospects. The Wild ended up doing so. They sent Zeev Buium over to Vancouver. But Quinn Hughes specifically goes out there and says that he is extremely open-minded to stay in Minnesota long-term because they have an amazing core. It's close to Michigan. And he also is very happy with Bill Guerin sacking up and trading so many assets for him. He said he'll always remember that it was the Wild that stepped up and not other teams. And that's a really interesting comment. Now, yesterday at the start of the show, we did also talk about the idea that apparently Quinn Hughes may not actually want to go to New Jersey. That was reported by Michael Russo, where according to some reports, maybe Quinn does not want to go over to a team that Luke is playing with and get in the way of Luke's development. Not that he doesn't want to play with his younger brother, it's just Quinn is one of the best defensemen in the world, Luke is far from that, and if Quinn does go to a team, it could prevent Luke from exhibiting that number one deployment on the power play at 5v5. Could Quinn Hughes' presence prohibit the Luke Hughes' inevitability of also becoming that good? That's a question for another day. But now, taking a look at this comment, Hughes saying that he's open-minded to staying with the Wild long-term, that's quite interesting because, hey, he didn't say anything about Vancouver in that same way. Let's talk about Vancouver just a little bit. There are some tweets that I think are interesting. Chester Meng said, remember now, he's willing to lie about Minnesota, and he's not willing to lie about the Vancouver Canucks. He also had Don Taylor asking, if Kirill Kaprizov is worth $17 million in a season, what's Quinn worth? Is there any way the Wild keep both of them long-term? Andreas Wall went out there and said this, if Quinn Hughes in any way even considers signing with the Wild, the Canucks management should be fired on the spot. It's very possible the noise next season will be just about that. If he plays out his contract, makes 2 Stanley Cup runs, and then signs with his brothers, all is well. And this perspective is really interesting. What the hell are you talking about? Why should they be fired if he signs with the Wild? I want to hear this. Andreas's point of view is that Quinn Hughes made the Canucks management aware he wouldn't re-sign with the Canucks on July 1st or at all. This is why the trade happened. You don't trade the best player in franchise history unless you're forced to. Most likely it does have to do with his brothers and his will to play with them, as the Canucks could offer him a crazy contract, making him one of, if not the most expensive players in the league. If he chooses to remain in Minnesota over playing with his brothers, that only shows you how unattractive Vancouver has become, even to a player who played here for 7 years, had some of his best friends on the team, and knew everyone that had to do with Canucks hockey. Now, I don't necessarily agree with this perspective, but I do think it's interesting that it does get tossed out there that, Quinn is now all of a sudden, I'm open-minded to signing in Mini. What happens if he does? What happens if he decides to sign with the Wild and doesn't end up going to New Jersey? And how do these comments play into that? Close to Michigan, Guerin sacked up and traded so many assets for him, he'll always remember that it was the Wild that stepped up and not other teams. Ryan Nowizinski, who does NewJersey.com Devils reporting, said, interesting. Jack is going to walk just like Zach Parise, isn't he? And then you had Annika Devils going out there and saying this. She is a writer for OnJSports.com. Wow, this is a shot at Fitzgerald. Possible Jack signed there in 2030, and Luke demands a trade out of Jersey, all because the current GM's inability to free up cap space this summer, and because he had already signed a 2-year contract with another older player, while young guys were waiting to step up. Is this some sort of a shot at the New Jersey Devils? Was there some sort of a kind of disdain on behalf of Quinn Hughes that the Devils did not, quote-unquote, sack up and trade the assets to get him? Taj went out there and said this: there are other teams that probably could have thrown in a certain package like that too, but at the end of the day, they didn't want to do that, or they didn't want to trade 2 or 3 assets from their team. He is definitely pissed at Fitzy. The other read is that the brothers didn't want Fitzy to trade away assets to get Quinn 18 months early. That also is a perspective. And then you also had this: Arthur Staple going out there and writing about the New Jersey Devils on Twitter from their game yesterday against the Vancouver Canucks. The Devils, who posted a much needed win over Anaheim by playing hard and as a group. Despite the win and the prospect of an actual win streak versus Vancouver yesterday, I'm hearing some noise around Tom Fitzgerald the last couple of days. No duh, you might say. The team is flatlining, and they didn't land Quinn Hughes or any other trade yet. But mid-season GM firings are incredibly rare because you're making a sea change, not just replacing a body. If he's let go, ownership has some options, yada yada yada. Other names, could Brendan Shanahan be in there? There are injuries to the lineup, which is absolutely true, but still, the New Jersey Devils didn't play a particularly good game yesterday. And now, with all of the rumors about Quinn Hughes bleeding into the New Jersey market, I do start to wonder if it actually got to a meaningful point. And the reason I ask that is because this guy and his status, everybody was consistently talking about Quinn going over to New Jersey to play with his brothers, etc., etc., and now he is expressing some very interesting commentary about how the Wild stepped up, about how the Wild traded the assets that they needed to, unlike some other teams, to get him. And it's so funny because extremely open-minded is very different from the deflecting and non-answering that Quinn Hughes did when he was in the Langley food drive in Vancouver, answering questions about potentially staying with the Vancouver Canucks long-term. That was I can't even sign until July 1st, so I couldn't sign if I wanted to, type of deal. Now he's like, extremely open-minded. Is that a shot at Ryan Fitzgerald and the New Jersey Devils? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This was kind of a rambly video, so I apologize for that, but let me know in the comments, do you think Quinn Hughes and his perception has shifted to Mini? Do you think this could signal a potential Hughes reunion with the Wild at some point? That would be doomsday scenario for New Jersey, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.